Hey everybody, this is Vince Miller. Thank you so much for joining me for another devotional today. We are finishing off chapter 2 of Malachi. Chapter 2, verse 17 reads this way: "You have wearied the Lord with your words, but you say," this is one of their questions again, "how have we wearied him?" And then God says, "By saying everyone who does evil is good in the sight of the Lord, and he delights in them," or by asking, "Where is the God of justice?" So Malachi here is basically telling the people that God is, a little tired of them. And yet again, they don't get it. But God has a very good legal rebuttal. He presents two exhibits. Exhibit A is their complaint. Exhibit B is their conclusion. So just for a little context, let's recall this moment in the history of God's people. While they were free to return home from exile back to Jerusalem, they were still subject to foreign leaders at this time. And the top of their concern at present is their economic despair because their city and the temple is in ruins. This is in contrast to the prospering countries around them. Therefore, they see their situation as unjust. They watch as unrighteous nations are being blessed, and they, the righteous, are not. So as a result, they draw at least three conclusions about God. First, God rejoices in evil. Second, God lacks discernment. And then third, God is just simply not just. Three very wrong conclusions about God, by the way. But let's agree that when we are in a state of despair, right, we're prone to draw some wrong conclusions. I'm sure you've done this. So have I. This is because when we're in a state of despair, we want answers. And in seeking answers, we ask questions, of course, but sometimes these questions get answered by our present feelings or our very finite, shallow, narrow perspective. Therefore, we make assumptions. And that is what God's people have done in this situation. They have made assumptions that they are righteous and others are unrighteous. But that's not the case. All people are unrighteous. Yet God allowed offerings to be made for the unrighteous of his people. But they brought unacceptable sacrifices and offerings. Remember that? And God refused them. In addition, they have other issues already listed in chapter 2. They worship foreign gods and committed adultery with foreign women. So while God's people perceive themselves as righteous, they're just as unrighteous as any other unrighteous person. But because they assume they are righteous, they feel economic blessings are due to them. And then, to top it off, they accuse God of lacking judgment. But the ones who lack judgment are them. You know, I have found that when I am in a state of despair, that the best thing I can do is just fix my mind on the truth about who God is, who God has been, and who he always will be. Then next, I reject the assumptions that my mind considers that arise from my feelings and perspective, very shallow, narrow perspective. And last, I have to preach truth about God to my soul. So today, if you're a believer who is in maybe despair, don't make any assumptions. God is just, and he is faithful. Only we are unjust and unfaithful. Bring an acceptable sacrifice to God, and then trust him with the outcome. I love you guys. I pray this has blessed you. If it has, share it with someone else, maybe who is in despair today. And I'll see you right back here again tomorrow.